We begin in a place most people run from: silence. But for us, the warrior chosen ones, silence is not emptiness. It is a forge. It is the crucible where we are stripped of everything false and left with only what is real. Imagine this: a single individual leaves everything behind: noise, comfort, distractions, and enters deep isolation. No phone, no people, no external stimulation. Just the sound of breath, heartbeat, and the vast, unfiltered echo of their own soul. What happens next is not entertainment. It's not flashy, but it is revolutionary. Because in that silence, powers begin to awaken, powers that cannot be accessed in the chaos of the world. You see, we live in a culture addicted to noise. We are constantly bombarded with input, opinions, alerts, and distractions. But silence? Silence terrifies most people because it forces them to face themselves. And that's why it's the domain of the warrior chosen ones. Because we don't fear the void, we enter it. We lean into the uncomfortable stillness because we know that what we find there isn't emptiness. It's origin. It's the blueprint of who we really are beneath the conditioning, beneath the roles, beneath the masks. And when we sit long enough in that sacred space, the first hidden power begins to emerge: energetic perception. Energetic perception is the ability to feel what others can't see. It's the unlocking of a sense that goes beyond the 5 physical ones. In silence, when the mind quiets and the nervous system settles, we begin to pick up on the subtle. We can feel truth vibrating in a room. We can sense deception before a word is spoken. We can detect dissonance between someone's words and their energy. This is not imagination. This is a refinement of spiritual instinct. It's the warrior chosen one's first awakening, learning to see the unseen, to trust the signals that don't come from logic but from vibration.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
But this ability doesn't come all at once. It comes after hours, days, sometimes weeks of sitting with your own discomfort. The silence shows you everything you've avoided, all the thoughts you've suppressed, all the emotions you've numbed, and as they rise, they begin to clear out. They purge, they release. And as the inner noise dissolves, the external noise becomes obvious. You begin to walk through the world like a tuning fork. You can feel the energy of environments. You can sense when something is off. And that awareness becomes your armor, or compass, your shield in a world full of illusion. Let me ask you something that may cut deep. When was the last time you sat with yourself without trying to change, fix, or distract? When did you last feel your own energy without interference? Because that's where the first key lives. Power doesn't come from control. It comes from presence. And presence is only available to those who have made peace with their own silence. That's why most people will never unlock this. Because they're still running from the one place that holds their answers, themselves. As this perception sharpens, something else begins to happen. You begin to detach, not from people in a cold, disconnected way, but from illusions. You stop needing validation. You stop reacting to projection. You stop absorbing other people's energy because you now know what's yours. And that leads us into the second hidden power, energetic sovereignty. This is the ability to hold your own vibration no matter what chaos surrounds you. It is the essence of spiritual warfare, not in aggression, but in stability. Imagine walking into a room full of drama, fear, or manipulation, and you remain untouched. Not because you're numb, but because your energy field is sealed. You are no longer reactive, you are responsive. You are centered. This kind of power cannot be faked. It must be built in silence. It must be earned by sitting through every storm inside you until you realize that your center is not something you find, it's something you find. And once you become it, nothing external can destabilize you. That's why silence is not passive. It is the most active, intense initiation you will ever experience. Because it reveals the parts of you that were never truly yours. The beliefs implanted by society, the voices of childhood, the fears passed down through the bloodline. And as each layer peels back, you reclaim your original frequency. You become unshakable. And that unshakable frequency is what allows you to unlock the third power, conscious manifestation. Now, listen closely, because this isn't the sugar-coated version of manifestation you've heard online. This is not about vision boards and lucky numbers. This is about alignment. In silence, you begin to understand that reality bends not to your desires, but to your vibration. When your inner world is clear, focused, and aligned, the external world must reflect it. You stop trying to chase outcomes and start becoming the frequency of what you desire. You don't manifest from lack. You manifest from clarity, from silence, from stillness. You realize that the universe is not responding to your words. It's responding to your energy. And your energy becomes clean when it is no longer polluted by fear, doubt, or the noise of others. That's why silence is the most powerful manifestation tool in existence, because it gets you out of the way. It removes the static. It makes you a clear channel. And in that clarity, you remember that you are not a beggar in the universe, you are a co-creator. Let me ask you something right now, and don't answer quickly. What are you trying to manifest that your energy is not aligned with? Because if you're asking for peace but living in chaos, the universe is reading the chaos. If you're asking for love but vibrating in abandonment, the universe is responding to the abandonment. Energy doesn't lie, and silence shows you the truth of your vibration. It gives you the raw data, and from there, you can shift, you can align, you can become that which you seek. As this alignment deepens, something even more profound begins to awaken. A fourth hidden power that few ever access, ancestral memory. In silence, the noise of this life dies down, and what begins to rise are echoes, not from your mind, but from your lineage. Your blood begins to speak. Your bones begin to remember. You feel things you've never learned. You know things you've never been taught. Because the wisdom of your ancestors is stored in your very DNA, waiting for stillness to activate it. You begin to have visions, dreams, flashes of ancient rituals. You start to speak words you don't recognize in languages your soul remembers. You feel the presence of guides, of protectors, of those who came before you and carried the same codes you are now awakening. And you realize you're not alone. You never were. You were chosen, yes, but not as a solo warrior. You are part of a larger mission, a larger lineage, a larger force of light that has been moving through humanity for centuries. And this realization humbles you, because now you know that your silence is not just about you. Your healing is not just about you. Every time you sit in meditation, every time you breathe through a trigger, every time you choose presence over reaction, you are healing your bloodline. You are breaking patterns that enslave generations. You are becoming the ancestor your future lineage will thank. And that is sacred work. That is warrior work. That is chosen work. Let me ask you this now, and hold it in your heart. What ancestral energy lives in your body that is asking to be healed through your silence? What pain are you carrying that didn't start with you but can end with you? Because that's the power you hold. You are not just healing for this life. You are healing for the entire timeline. And silence is the portal through which that healing flows. As you sit deeper in the silence, something begins to shift that cannot be explained through logic or science. It's as though the very fabric of your reality begins to change. Time slows down. The body becomes lighter. The mind no longer shouts, it whispers. And in that whisper, the fifth hidden power begins to rise. This is the power of dimensional awareness. It is the ability to perceive multiple layers of reality at once, to see the physical, the energetic, the emotional, and the spiritual all coexisting in the same moment. It is the awakening of the warrior's sight, the ability to look at one situation and recognize that it is both mundane and mystical, both challenge and initiation, that both breakdown and breakthrough. Most people live in one dimension, the physical. They see what's in front of them and react to it. But we, the warrior chosen ones, begin to see through it. We don't just see the argument, we see the unhealed trauma beneath it. We don't just see the delay, we see divine redirection. We don't just see the sickness, we see the soul's attempt to communicate. And this awareness doesn't make us better than others. It makes us more responsible. Because once you see the truth behind the illusion, you can no longer pretend it isn't there. You can no longer play small. You must begin to live in alignment with what you know, not just what you see. This dimensional awareness is not something you can fake. It cannot be taught in a seminar or downloaded in a course. It comes from being with yourself in ways most people avoid. It comes from listening so deeply that you begin to hear the frequency behind words, the energy behind faces, the truth behind systems. And that truth can be painful, because once you activate this power, you begin to see how much of the world is asleep. You walk through cities, through conversations, through relationships, and you realize how many people are playing roles, wearing masks, surviving instead of living. But instead of judging them, you feel compassion, because you remember when you were asleep too. Let me ask you something now, and be honest with yourself. Where in your life are you still reacting to the surface instead of listening to the soul of the moment? Where are you still caught in the illusion, even though you know there's something deeper happening? These are the places where your dimensional sight is trying to open. But it only opens when you stop resisting silence, when you stop filling every space with noise, when you stop needing constant answers and start trusting the unknown. This leads us to the sixth and final hidden power, a power so misunderstood, so undervalued, and yet so vital for warrior chosen ones. It's the power of sovereign stillness. This is not just about sitting still. It's about becoming the eye of the storm. It's about becoming the calm presence in the middle of chaos. It's about knowing that the world will spin, people will panic, energy will shift, but you remain. You remain grounded. You remain centered. You remain in truth. This is the power that makes others turn to you in crisis. Not because you have all the answers, but because your presence is the answer. Sovereign stillness is magnetic. It draws people in, but it also holds boundaries. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't react. It simply is. And in a world that is constantly pushing, pulling, selling, proving your stillness becomes a revolution. It becomes a sacred rebellion that says, I do not have to perform to exist. I do not have to hustle to be worthy. I do not have to explain my peace. And this kind of power can only be built through silence, through being with yourself long enough to realize that nothing external defines you, that your worth is not up for debate, that your energy is your own. When you embody sovereign stillness, people feel it. They don't always understand it, but they feel it. They may try to provoke you. They may project onto you. They may try to pull you into their chaos, but you don't move. You don't flinch. You don't collapse into their frequency. Because now you know peace is not passive. It is a warrior's stance. It is a declaration. It is the decision to no longer participate in energetic games just to feel seen or significant. You are no longer performing. You are now embodying. Let me ask you something that most people never consider. What would your life look like if you no longer needed to prove anything to anyone? What if you stopped explaining yourself? What if you stopped seeking approval? What if you simply owned your energy and let that be enough? That is sovereign stillness. That is the frequency that changes timelines. That is the vibration that disarms manipulation, dissolves confusion, and anchors divine truth into a room. But this level of embodiment will test you because the world wants you reactive. It wants you triggered. It wants you loud and scattered and insecure. That's how systems stay in control. But when you sit in silence, when you return to your breath, when you ground into your soul, you become uncontrollable, unshakable, undeniable. You become a living reminder of what humans are capable of when they remember who they are. You become the anomaly in the matrix. The glitch. The light that doesn't flicker, even when the wind howls. The more you embody this, the more your external life begins to shift. Relationships fall away. New ones appear. Opportunities align. Synchronicities increase. The universe begins to respond to your essence, not your effort. Because now you're not manifesting from desperation, you're magnetizing from embodiment. You're not chasing outcomes, you're becoming the vibration that naturally attracts what's aligned. And that's the secret most people miss. Silence is not absence. It's alignment. It's the space where all things return to truth. You also begin to realize that silence connects you to something greater than yourself. God, Source, the divine. Whatever name you use, the presence becomes undeniable. No longer a concept, but a felt reality. You feel guided, supported, held, not by people, not by circumstances, but by something eternal. And that connection becomes your anchor, your source of clarity, your compass when the world gets noisy again. Because the noise will return, the chaos will knock. But now you have a place within that is untouched and unshakable. Let me ask you now, and let this question sit with you for days. Where in your life are you still outsourcing your center? Are you still depending on someone else to calm you down? To validate your decisions? To tell you who you are? Because that's the invitation of silence, to bring all of that back home, to reclaim every fragment of your power, to remember that you were never meant to find your truth in others. You were meant to remember it in yourself. And now that you've remembered, you begin to lead differently. Not from ego, not from performance, but from presence. People feel safe around you not because you say the right things, but because your energy is clean. Your eyes are clear. Your intentions are pure. You don't need to prove your power. You are the power. And in a world full of noise, you become the silence people didn't know they were craving. You become the pause, the breath, the stillness that reminds others of their own soul. That is the true mission of the warrior chosen ones. Not to save, not to shout, but to embody. To become living proof that power, peace, and purpose are not found in the world, they are unlocked in silence. And now that you've unlocked these 6 hidden powers, your life will never be the same. Not because you've added something new, but because you've remembered who you've always been. Now that you've unlocked the 6 hidden powers within silence, the journey doesn't end, it begins. Because real power is not just about what you can access in stillness, but what you can carry back into the world. The warrior chosen ones are not monks who hide forever in caves. We are the ones who descend from the mountain with fire in our eyes and peace in our bones. We return to the noise, not to be consumed by it, but to transform it. We walk among the asleep, not to judge, but to anchor a new frequency simply by being who we are. And this is where the final phase of your true embodiment begins. You've walked through silence. You've faced your own shadows. You've sat through the emotional storms, the ancestral echoes, the mental chaos, and you remained. That alone already sets you apart from 99% of this world. But now comes the next layer of mastery, living from those powers, even when no one else understands them. Because the moment you return to the external world with your internal world shifted, everything around you will begin to respond differently. Some people will be magnetized to your energy. Others will be repelled. That's not your fault. That's resonance. Energetic perception will now become your daily compass. You'll walk into rooms and feel the weight of unspoken truths. You'll learn to read energy before words are spoken. You'll know when someone is in alignment with you and when they're pretending. This isn't paranoia, it's precision. You're tuned now. Your nervous system has become an antenna for truth. And this means one thing above all: you will no longer be able to tolerate what you used to normalize. That includes jobs, relationships, conversations, environments. If it disrupts your peace, it is no longer part of your path. And making those choices will require courage, because peace will cost you everything that was built on your disconnection. Let me ask you something you may have avoided. What are you still holding on to that doesn't match the vibration of who you've become? What are you still entertaining out of obligation, guilt, or fear? Because now that you've unlocked these powers, anything that drains your light is a direct threat to your mission. You are no longer just a person. You are a frequency holder. a keeper of codes, a walking reminder of truth. And you must protect that energy with the same intensity a warrior protects sacred ground. Energetic sovereignty will now challenge you, because there will be moments where everything in your environment wants to pull you back into old patterns. People from your past may try to re-enter your life, not because they've changed, but because your energy has. Some will want to feed off it. Others will want to dim it. And in those moments, you must remember, silence taught you how to choose peace over people, not out of coldness, but out of self-respect. You are not abandoning anyone, you are simply no longer abandoning yourself. You'll be tested, again and again. The world will ask, have you really integrated what you found in silence? And you must respond not with words, but with integrity, with boundaries, with choices that reflect your inner alignment. You'll feel the tension between who you were and who you've become. But that tension is not a problem, it's a portal. It's where the old timeline dies and the new one begins. And every time you choose the new, the universe expands to meet you with more clarity, more alignment, more divine orchestration. Your conscious manifestation abilities will now operate on a higher level. You'll notice that things arrive faster not because you're forcing them, but because your vibration is cleaner. You're no longer leaking energy through doubt, fear, or false identities. You're no longer imagining from scarcity, you're creating from resonance. And this is the secret most people miss. Manifestation is not just about desire, it's about identity. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. And now that you've remembered who you are, the world has no choice but to reflect it. But don't let that go to your head, because with great manifestation comes great responsibility. You must now stay deeply aware of your energy at all times. Every thought, every intention, every action is a seed. You are no longer playing small. You are a co-creator now. And that means staying in integrity, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. Silence taught you this. It showed you that the real work happens in the unseen. And that's where your power lives, in the unseen choices, in the quiet disciplines, in the moments you choose alignment over comfort. Ancestral memory will begin to feel like a living presence in your life. You won't just think about your ancestors, you'll walk with them. You'll feel their hands guiding you, their voices whispering in your dreams, their strength pulsing through your blood. You'll realize that you are the answered prayer of someone who survived the unspeakable. And you will not take that lightly. Because now you carry the torch, you carry the codes. You carry the unfulfilled dreams, not as a burden, but as a sacred mission. You are the healer of your lineage, the breaker of patterns, the one who said, "It ends with me." Let me ask you something now with full presence. What legacy are you leaving behind? Not in words, but in energy? What will your descendants feel in their bones because of the choices you made? This is not about perfection. It's about presence. It's about doing the inner work so deeply that your future bloodline inherits peace instead of pain, stillness instead of shame, truth instead of trauma. That is the real inheritance. That is what you came here to create. Dimensional awareness will now become your lens for navigating life. You'll stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this showing me across all levels of reality?" you'll see the soul behind the conflict, the lesson behind the delay, the purpose inside the pain. And when others are freaking out, you'll be anchored. Not because you deny reality, but because you understand that reality is layered. Nothing is just what it seems. And your ability to hold that awareness will become your superpower. But it will also require humility, because you'll realize how many people are suffering from things they don't even understand. They're not just angry, they're wounded. They're not just toxic, they're trapped in patterns. And your job is not to fix them. Your job is to hold space, to be a living frequency of clarity, love, boundaries, and truth. You are not the savior. You are the mirror. And your stillness will show them what's possible, not because you say it, but because you are it. And finally, sovereign stillness will become your home frequency. Not a place you visit, a place you live from. You'll begin each day from that center. You'll return to it every time the world tries to pull you off course. You'll breathe from it, speak from it, feed from it. And in doing so, you'll become a walking sanctuary in a world addicted to stimulation. People won't always understand you, but they'll feel you. And that feeling will stay with them long after they leave. Let me ask you one last question, and let it echo inside you. What version of you emerges when the world goes silent? That version, the one without the mask, without the performance, without the noise. That's who you really are. And that version is the one the world is waiting for. Not the polished version, not the loud version. The real one. The one who sat in silence and remembered. The one who unlocked the hidden powers and returned with wisdom in their eyes and fire in their soul. That is the warrior chosen one. And if you're still here, if these words are vibrating in your bones, then you already know this was never just a video. This is a remembrance, a spiritual activation, a coded message sent through time to wake you up. Not someday now. The world doesn't need more noise. It needs the power that only silence can unlock. And you, yes, you are the key.